We are live. Excuse me. We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this crazy Rebel Outpost YouTube channel with a donation, just hit the $ where you make a comment and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I can. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend in the chat room or with your phone calls later in the show. This is one of those days where I'm minding my own business. I'm working on a show. We're going to talk about the crazy, all the changes at the Four Corners schools, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah have gone through some of those schools. Arizona's losing their president. He was a very important piece when it came to conference realignment. He was a very important piece when it came to the Holy Smokes Theater? Hint, hint, wink, wink. And I won't go any further than that on that. But anyways, he is leaving. No longer going to be president. His contract goes out to 2026. He would leave before that if they get somebody hired. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about this very interesting Sporticle article on the Dartmouth basketball. Now, this is a college football YouTube channel. We don't talk NFL. We don't talk basketball, just a very little. We are very focused nationally, college football nationally. But again, this has to do with NLRB and the Dartmouth players. What do they think? We're going to hit on this article. Then I was going to do a spotlight on a team. It was going to be the Michigan State Spartans. But then I got a phone call. Then suddenly I had to rip up the script on this live show today. Now, I am in the middle of this story. Now, I'm not in the middle of the story. I'm talking about we are in the middle of digging in on a certain story out in North Carolina. So am I going to be able to give you a whole lot of details? No. But what I'm planning to do is I'm going to give you the broad brush tonight. I think it's important. We are college football's peek around the corner. Now, let me step back so you guys can understand. By the end of the show, by the end of the monologue, you're going to understand why I think this is important to tell you. Even if I don't fill in all the gaps. But you're going to understand. You know, this kind of reminds me. December 26, 2022. For those that you were here, you know that I was going to have this big live show and talk about how Florida State is about to announce something in 2 months, the declaratory statement that they're going to come out and say the ACC has to reform it, so blah, 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 blah. And I said some of that, but I couldn't go out and say a lot of it because we were asked to stand down. We stood down for the betterment of the story that other people worked, because people found out that we knew what they knew. So even though there's no strings attached, we like to harvest the field over and over again. I made the decision to go out that night, apologize to you on the bait and switch. But then we talked about it, and we were able to keep talking about it, and you know the history. And then we went into then I talked about this Clemson chatter, right? And I would talk about it, and I'd say they've been working. I was telling you guys all this. We all thought they were going to pull the trigger between January 20th and February 6th. That didn't happen. They decided to pull the trigger on March 19th. On March 15th, we had a live show, and I literally had my hands up like this, and I said, the chatter is so loud. The chatter is so loud on Clemson. And then on March 19th, 4 days later, they filed. In fact, when the news broke on March 19th, I had actually gone to Target, CVS and Target, to pick up some medication for my mother. And I looked at the phone. My phone was exploding. And I saw, the chatter was extremely loud on Clemson. This is a growing UNC chatter. It's louder than it's ever been. Is it as loud? And I can't really put numbers. I can't give you empirical data. I've just been in this game for so long. I kind of understand. It's like an earthquake, a tremor. Thank you, Kerry Golden Knowles. I'll get to you super chat as quick as I can here. I just want to finish this thought. You sort of understand. Anyways, the chatter is growing loud. Now, I got a phone call in which I had to rip up the script for today's show. There was a question asked in the hallways of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. There was a particular question that was asked from one person to the next. This information is not coming from anybody, any North Carolina money perch. This is coming from somebody who is somebody at North Carolina. So, this particular question, it definitely was asked. We don't know. We do not have the answer. It was asked from one unit of University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, to another unit of University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And the question is, I think, incredibly interesting. Now, I have not had the chance. We know this happened. We know this particular question was asked. I have not been able to have a chance to pick up the phone and then make more than to deliver this to other people that I know in the industry. So this is a halved. I don't want to use that term. I was about to use the term half-baked, but then you guys would think that this is a half-baked. This is not, this story, I need more time on this. But then again, we wanted to come live. I wanted to give you the peek around the corner on this very, very interesting news. Now, I understand, look, a lot of people, are not going to, look, I've been on here the last couple of days saying, you know what, I don't think Florida State, we're not hearing the stuff about Florida State going independent before 2024. We don't believe that the ESPN has told the ACC, some schools, that the contract, that they've already decided that they're not going to opt in and have continue to distribute ACC's content beyond 2027. I've been kind of a Scrooge on these things, so because I haven't heard it from the people that I talk to. So I completely understand if you all in the chat room and other people are saying, Craig, this didn't happen. I get it. You can let me know in the chat. You can rip on me in the phone calls late in the show. You're all open to do that. But remember something. Just remember something. This whole North Carolina thing. If you go back, if you've been watching our show for months and months and months, you know that we really hit this changing of the landscape at North Carolina hard. We went into the details of Mike Gusowich, the rock fight that was going on in the Board of Regents, the Board of Trustees. We really hit it hard on the Board of Governors. And now that they have power when it comes to conference affiliation. We've really hit the North Carolina story hard. We got to it early. We were told a bunch of stuff. And it was told to us not by the money perch. I have never said the phrase North Carolina money perch when it comes to the information that we are receiving from North Carolina Chapel Hill. Yes, Arizona State money perch, Florida State money perch, BTM and his associates. We do very well. We get a lot of we have broken stories because of our money perch connections. But this has never been a North Carolina money perch. This is somebody who, and a few of his pals, they have been ahead of the curve. So this is coming from inside the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. A very interesting question was asked. So we're going to get that to the end of our monologue here. Stick with us here, peek around the corner. We know enough. We know enough at April 2nd, Tuesday night. We know enough here at Peek Around the Corner to let you all know. And I'm going to get to the question. We're going to let you know that the chatter is louder than it's ever been at North Carolina. We do not expect anything to be imminent. It's not quite as loud as March 15th, the Clemson chatter, when we reported that to you on March 15th, and then they went ahead and did the lawsuit March 19th. It's not at that level, but it's louder than it's ever been. And I think I can be responsible in letting you know this, and I think we're going to be very, very, very accurate on this. So, anyways, let me get to the PATC community here. Kerry Gold knows Greg, a friend of mine that played ball at Florida State, told me off the record that he's hearing Florida State has the goods on the ACC and ESPN. Expect both sides to settle before the start of the 2024 season. Thank you, Kerry Gold knows. I appreciate your super chat. I do sense a lot of optimism among the Seminole faithful and other people who've been watching the story. I think a lot of it has to do with the courts. And I cannot predict. I cannot predict what's going to happen in Mecklenburg County, possibly tomorrow, Thursday or Friday, on the ruling. Judge Bledsoe, I do believe as a non-lawyer that Florida State has a better case. There's some weaknesses there that I did not anticipate. Florida State, I think, is in a better position now than I thought they were going to be. No question about that. But again, it's going to have to do a lot. What gets decided in these rulings here? The April 9th, the Leon County case takes off, and then there's going to be a ruling probably days after, weeks after. So we'll see. But thank you so much, Kerry Goldnose. Thank you so much for your generosity once again. Expedition Greg, gifted membership. Holy smokes. Once again, Expedition Greg, you are hereby cloak and dagger knighted. Thank you so very much. And let's see who picked up that gifted membership. Well, I don't see it. I do not see it for some reason. But whoever got that gifted membership, you are hereby cloak and dagger knighted. It's not showing. It is not showing. Anyways, let me thank everybody who has come on in. Jamie Thornton, Tough Tony. I think I've missed some people. Alani Ted, 2 King Slots, D5 Terps, Charlie Atwood, Almighty Finn, Stephen Vitt, John Farm Lore, Ryan C, Donnie McNerney, Almighty Finn, Hagen, Congo, Ryan C. Everybody's here. Sean, DP, Hummus Hero, Grateful Trojan. Okay, if I missed you, settlements are good, Connecticut fan. If I missed you, I apologize. Okay, so let's get going here. Now, if you are a member of Cloak and Dagger, if you are a member of the program, I think there's a very good chance that, I'm going to be talking about this North Carolina chatter in this monologue. And I think there's a chance that I'll have more details, and I'll first put it on the Cloak and Dagger member episodes for tomorrow morning. So if you're a member, take a look at it. If you're not, become a member. Go to the link, hit the join button and become a member. I'm going to try to put out some details more than I can do on this. We're working on one particular detail that we don't have confirmed. So I cannot put it out tonight, but hopefully tomorrow morning. But whatever I talk about tomorrow morning, tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon in our live show, I'm gonna say more than I'm gonna say tonight. Okay? I guarantee you that. Okay. First of all, before we get to that, Jamie Thornton, thank you so much for the gifted membership. Holy smokes. Jamie, Mrs. Arkansas Razorback, you are hereby Cloak and Dagger knighted. Thank you so very, very much. It's interesting that my chat isn't showing who's getting the memberships. But if you guys let me know, I will officially knight them, Cloak and Dagger. Isn't that interesting? That is very interesting. Anyways, okay. Let's get to, we've got a stack show. We got to get to it. We got to get to the North Carolina chatter. It's louder than it's ever been. It keeps growing louder, and we're going to talk about it. Dartmouth basketball players move to block college's NLRB appeal. So Dartmouth is wanting to do an appeal, and the players are moving to block it. The 15 players on the Dartmouth College men's basketball team have already made history by becoming the first unionized college athletes in American history. Well, not quite. It was a 13-2 vote, and at least one of those players that voted no on union has left the program, who's in the portal. So I think it's down to 14 players. But anyways, now they're trying to make sure their employer doesn't rewrite the history books. Last Thursday, the Service Employees International Union, Local 560, the labor organization that represents the players, filed a 54-page response to Dartmouth College request for review of NLRB Regional Director Laura Sachs' February 5th decision. Sachs recognized the players as employees within the meaning of the National Labor Relations Act and ordered a union election. Again, Sportico, published today. Through a group of attorneys, that includes Jake Krupski and Susan Davis, the union urges NLRB to deny the request. Dartmouth requesting review tantamount to an appeal is not surprising, since the school contends the players aren't employees. It are instead amateur student athletes. Sachs found the players perform work for Dartmouth in exchange for compensation and that the school has the right to control that work. Although Dartmouth and other Ivy League athletes do not receive athletic scholarships, the Big Green players, the Dartmouth basketball players, net other types of compensation. Sachs reasoned that per diem payments, meals, room and board, expensive sneakers, priority admissions to one of the nation's most selective schools, which also fully pays an admitted student's need for financial aid, count as compensation. In its brief, the union emphasizes the NLRB granting Dartmouth's request, let alone reversing Sachs, is a no layup. Under the labor law, the standard of review is high. The board should only grant a request when there's compelling reasons and either the regional director decided substantial factual issue that is clearly erroneous and such a mistake prejudicially affects Dartmouth's rights of a substantial question of law or policy is raised. In other words, you're not going to get that review, Dartmouth. You're not going to get that review. You're not going to get the okay for the review unless the regional director, NLRB, unless they completely screwed up. An erroneous, factual, compelling reasons. Dartmouth, in other words, has to clear 2 bars to win at NLRB. The school must convince the board to grant the request and then side with it. The 5-member board currently has 1 vacancy. Of the 4, 3 were appointed by Democratic presidents, while Marvin Kaplan was appointed by Trump. Dartmouth needs an affirmative vote 4-0 or 3-1. 2-2? Not good enough. It's got to be 4-0 or 3-1 for the request to move forward. Last month, the board ruled against Dartmouth 3-1 on whether to stay the union election. Kaplan dissented and described Sachs' decision as unprecedented. He also empirically questioned the classification of college athletes who do not receive athletic scholarships, perhaps telling the other 3 didn't join Kaplan, which might signal their views are more in line with the union. And one of those 3 are going to have to side with Kaplan, or 2 of those, my apologies, 2 of them are going to have to side with Kaplan. The board's decision to get the review for Dartmouth, College of Dartmouth to get the review. The board's decision on Dartmouth's request could have a profound effect on how quickly the legal controversy plays out. If the board grants the request, many months will likely pass before the board rules on whether the players are employees. In 2014-15, the board took 16 months to decide whether Northwestern University football players were employees. A similar timeline here would mean the board doesn't rule until the summer of 2025. Of course, a presidential election will be held between now and next summer. If Joe Biden is reelected, the NLRB General Counsel, a strong advocate for college athletes as employees, would have a good chance of being retained. Alternatively, if Trump wins, he will likely replace Abruzzo, a Democrat, with someone whose views on college athletes might differ. The General Counsel plays a key role in advising the board. If the board declines Dartmouth's request to review, the school would likely then immediately pursue federal court review, kicking off a timeline that could eventually land in the U.S. Supreme Court. A denial would accelerate the timeline by perhaps a year or more, since it would remove the board's review. Alternatively, if the board grants the review, many months will likely pass before a decision. So if the review is denied, and I think the Chalk PATC Sportsbook that you can find when you take a right on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway, if you go down about a couple miles, PATC Sportsbook, the favorite, the chalk is that the board is going to deny the review. And this is going to accelerate everything, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we're talking about it on April 2nd, because this is going to affect, eventually, college football. Much like Dartmouth's arguments in its brief to the board, the union arguments in its brief covered familiar terrain. The union's central argument is the recognition of the basketball players as employees. While historical in a college sports sense is an obvious outcome in the U.S. labor market and reflects a correct application of labor law. So the union stresses, we've gone through all this before. The union also repeatedly refers to Justice Brett Kavanaugh concurring opinion in the NCAA versus Alston case, where Kavanaugh critiqued the lack of meaningful ability for college athletes to negotiate compensation rules. And I talked about this in the first couple episodes of this YouTube channel in August of 2022. The NCAA versus Alston, if you read what Kavanaugh wrote, he's basically telling you, you have to have where these athletes get representation in a collective bargaining agreement. And by the way, you should have the conferences negotiate with the student athletes, not a governing body. The conferences. Kavanaugh made that perfectly clear. And I think that's about it. And then they talked about Title IX. So very important. We're going to find out soon here. I think Dartmouth's going to get denied. I think this is going to accelerate. I think this is going to be quickening up here. Plus we're going to be finding out the ruling on NLRB versus USC, NCAA, and the Pac-12. All three of those. NLRB against all three of them. The school, the whole governing body of the NCAA, and the conference. All three levels. All three levels are being covered on that case. So we're going to find out the ruling on that, I think, pretty soon. But I thought we should cover that because if the board denies the review for Dartmouth College to try to get, then we're going to talk about it here because eventually it's going to affect Ivy League football. And then it might all spread. It might all spread. Anyways, so I want to talk about that. Before we get to the North Carolina chatter, and we're going to get to it right now. If you at the beginning of the show, I talked about how I was doing I had a layout of our show, what we're going to talk about, and we were going to do Michigan State Spartans. We're going to do the spotlight, but we don't have time. We got to talk about North Carolina. But I do want to talk about Aiden Chiles. in the title of the show, I think it's titled North Carolina, UNC chatter getting louder by the day. Absolutely true, especially today. And then Aiden Chiles Mania is running wild in East Lansing. Now I get it. Their fan base is very, very excited about the quarterback that they have in place, right? Fafita, Arizona, you've seen it. You saw what he did last year. You're excited about the new offense. You're excited about Fafita and Mac going at T-Mac, the combination this year. There are certain things, quarterbacks, fan bases are incredibly excited. The Spartan fans are going nutso for Aiden Chiles. Now he's played a little bit, but of course he hasn't played for Michigan State. But I'm starting to wonder. I don't think the Spartan fans are crazy at all. He is getting rave reviews, reports coming out of East Lansing. In the way he talks to the press, but his ability on the field, the Sparty fans are going crazy. Now, Stephen Vitt, Aiden Chiles, and Coach Jonathan Smith, Beaver traders turn Spartans. Let's talk about that for a second. And then when we're done talking about Aiden Chiles, we will go. We'll talk about the UNC chatter. But I got to talk football here. We've been talking football every live show. We got to. Aiden Chiles. So he eventually commits to Oregon State. He's a 4-star out of, I forget where, California. I know he's from California, West Coast. He's like a 4.5 star. He's not a low 4-star. He's a highly, highly, highly touted. He kept growing. I remember during his recruiting, people were shocked that he got to 6'3". Now they've got him listed at 6'4". He grew a lot. I don't know what year it was, junior, senior in high school. Started to fill out his body. Had all the athletic ability in the world. But then he started looking like a quarterback. And because of that, he went from 3-star to a low 4-star to a mid 4-star, a little bit higher than a mid 4-star. And for people out in the West Coast who are watching this channel, I think you all remember his recruitment and stuff. Well, then, Jonathan Smith got himself DJ Ungolangale. He did pretty good last year. Now he went DJ transferred to Florida State. Jonathan Smith, had Aiden Chiles as his QB2. But then Jonathan Smith took the job at East Lansing, Michigan State's new head football coach. And it is kind of intriguing. Jonathan Smith wanted Aiden Chiles to come with him. And Aiden Chiles wanted to go with him. California kid. Could have stayed at Oregon State. Okay. The realignment situation, Oregon State. Okay. But he could have went somewhere else. But he followed Jonathan Smith, the head coach. There's a connection there. There's a connection after 1 year. And what they're saying out of East Lansing, Man, what an intriguing storyline Aiden Chiles is for Michigan State. He's bulked up some more. All the talent in the world. He's impressed the players. He's become the leader. And he's making plays in spring practice. That's all I'm going to talk about when it comes to the Michigan State Spartans for this show, because we're going to hop on to North Carolina. But Aiden Chiles, just remember the name. I know you all know the name. But it's going to be a very interesting year in Spartanland. Now, I don't think the Spartans, they have been really down. The Gophers, my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers, have put the hurt on Michigan State the last 2 years. That talent level on that program just fell off the table. So it's going to take a while. But Jonathan Smith has a long runway. He doesn't have to win this year. And that's why bringing on a young kid like Aiden Chiles, let him get his hopefully first completed year as a starting quarterback under his belt. And then we'll see what happens in 2025. Sparty, very interesting. Aiden Chiles, Mania is running wild in East Lansing. Now, let's get to the North Carolina chatter. Okay, so something happened. Something happened. Okay, let's get you the landscape here. Number one, and this first part, none of this is new. Okay? None of this is new. The first part of this. One, we know that North Carolina supports the actions of Florida State and Clemson. We know that North Carolina in their relationship with the two universities, support their actions. Number two, and we've explained this in the Holy Smokes Theater, that North Carolina and Clemson are holding hands on this stage. They were at the edge of the stage, but now Clemson is standing right next to Florida State at the center of the stage, and Clemson's taking the other half of the stage, a little bit more to the center, but not quite where Florida State and Clemson are, but they're holding hands. We know that North Carolina did not vote for expansion. We know that North Carolina did not give any authority to Jim Phillips to sue Florida State or their actions on Clemson. We know that North Carolina, John Pryor, the chairman of the board, came out publicly right when Clemson filed saying, look, we agree with Clemson. We would like to have meaningful conversations with other conferences without being sued by the ACC. I added that little part in, but that's basically what John Pryor is saying, in my opinion. And we also know, and this is where something happened. We know the Board of Governors, 24-member body, the system president is Peter Hans. We know that the Board of Governors have more authority in regards to conference affiliation when it comes to the 16 public universities that are under this system, the Board of Governors. Not just North Carolina State, but there's 14 other public universities, one in which UNC Wilmington that changed conferences a couple times within the last 5, 6, 7 years. For them to do that again, or for anybody else to do that again, they're going to have to bring a plan in front of the Peter Hans, the president, and the board, and the board's going to have to approve this plan to potentially in change of conference affiliation. So we were on that story pretty hard. We were told today, we know this happened. We are 100% sure this happened. At this point, I'm not going to be able to tell you the exact body, internal body that asks a certain question to another certain body. Hopefully I can soon. But the question was asked, and I'm not saying it happened today, because it did not. It happened very, very recently, but we found out about it today. And okay, I'm not going to go down there. There was a question asked, do we, at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, do we have to present the plan to the UNC Board of Governors? Our plan to file a lawsuit against the ACC. What indications, what heads up, what notification do we need to give the Board of Governors if we shall file a lawsuit against Florida State? That was asked, and we're not saying it was asked directly to the Board of Governors. Not yet. It is something that we know somebody at North Carolina, Chapel Hill, somebody, asked somebody or somebody at North Carolina, Chapel Hill that question. So we are working on the story. Now, why, of course, was that question asked? Or why they're asked, they want to know, North Carolina wants to know, Chapel Hill wants to know, what is the process for them to pull the trigger to file a lawsuit against the ACC? They want to know the process. They want to know if they have to go to the Board of Governors first. I have no idea. Now, we spent the time looking at this thing that was passed, right? It was officially passed. It has to do with, you got to lay a plan for conference affiliation. Obviously, if you're going to file a lawsuit when it's about your membership of the ACC. You're talking about the possibility of changing conferences. John Pryor wants the opportunity to have meaningful conversations with other conferences. So is this part and parcel to having to have a plan, the financial plan? How much is this going to cost? How much is this going to risk North Carolina, Chapel Hill? How much could they be sued by damages from the ACC? A, B, C, D, all these questions are now being asked, but we don't know if these questions have been given yet to the Board of Governors. One set of North Carolina, a unit, I'll just call it a unit, a body. I'll call it people. People at North Carolina have asked other people at North Carolina, do we have to go to the Board of Governors? I wanna if North Carolina actually goes to the Board of Governors, first of all, we've asked a lot of questions. That's why the show came on a little bit later. That's why I had to rip up the script today. First of all, are we going to know that they went to the Board of Governors? Is that in public? I don't think so. If they actually go to the Board of Governors and lay out a plan for paying for lawyers, it sounds like they think they're going to have to do this. Have that plan, have it be approved. I don't know if that'd be in public or not. All we have is questions tonight because this came out of left field on us today. If that all happens, and if North Carolina actually files a lawsuit against ACC, and this is nothing against Florida State and Clemson, I love you all, okay? Nothing against Florida State and Clemson. Clemson's an original member of the ACC. Florida State's the number one football brand. Very powerful universities. I get it. But if North Carolina actually follow through on their question, their request, which we don't know if it's quite gotten to the Board of Governors yet. It had to go from one to the next, and then if they say yes, then it goes to the Board of Governors. If that all actually happens, it is a psychological blow to the ACC. And I think we all can agree that North Carolina knows this. So they're playing this. We are not the chatter, not quite at March 15th level. The Clemson chatter that I talked about on March 15th, and then they filed a lawsuit on March 19th. We're not there yet. Can you imagine for a moment that the Mecklenburg ruling this week, if it happens Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week, and if it doesn't, it has to happen what? On a Monday or Tuesday next week. So there's 5 more days, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday or Tuesday. Well, really probably Monday. Really probably tomorrow, Thursday or Friday. Let's be honest. If that ruling goes pear-shaped, if the motion to seal gets dismissed, if just the pure inertia, the pure momentum of this. And if North Carolina actually files a lawsuit, or if we actually learn, if they have to go to the Board of Governors first, and we learn that they did, just that, even what I'm saying right now, if that becomes national news, which it very well could, that alone right there is going to be such a psychological blow to the ACC. And I don't know how anybody can refute that part. If UNC actually does this. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the middle of this story, though. Middle of it. Like, we got this information. We know it happened. After this live show, I'm going to be working on this story. And so are other people. Now, what if we know the question was asked? So what if this one body of the North Carolina Chapel Hill asked this other legal counsel, I'll just say it, the legal counsel body of North Carolina. And what if they say, no, you don't have to go to the Board of Governors? Then that would be an interesting situation as well. Maybe North Carolina would be more inclined to pull the trigger on filing the lawsuit or getting it all ready to file if things go pear-shaped for the ACC in Mecklenburg County. You know, when this story landed on us on top of our heads today, and I had to rip up this script, my first reaction was, what are we talking about? I know, look, the people that are giving us this information, you know, if they say they have the information, they have the information. But even that, my reaction was, what is this? It doesn't make any sense. They don't need, they're not filing a notice of withdrawal, North Carolina, obviously. They don't have to get the Board of Governors okay to file a lawsuit. That has nothing to do with the empowerment, the powers that the Board of Governors have. The more we talked, the more information we got, it was like, don't know. They might have to go to the Board of Governors. Because filing a lawsuit against the ACC is at the very least about North Carolina having the opportunity to change conference, to change the conference affiliation. And that takes on risk for North Carolina Chapel Hill. There are many questions that we don't have the answer for. One, well, we don't know if this request has gone to the Board of Governors. It was an internal question at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So now we gotta get to the other part of the story that we don't have yet. Number two, if there is that request for the Board of Governors, and if they have to do it, let's say they have to do it. If North Carolina has to do it, are we going to find out about that in public? First of all, am I going to be able to learn that that's happening? Number two, is a national reporter going to be able to learn about it? I'm going to guarantee you something. A national reporter is going to, if they don't know about this now, they're going to learn about it here in the next 24 hours. So there's so much that we do not know, but we do know this serious question was asked from a certain body at North Carolina to a certain body at North Carolina. And I think that's that makes this UNC chatter even louder than it's ever been. I'm going to get to your comments. You can talk about anything you want. We had to rip up the script for today. We had to just shred it up. This took a while. We have more work to do. I'm not going to come on live again tonight, unless I'm not going to come on live again tonight. But whatever more information we get, we're going to put it out there on an early Cloak and Dagger, early peak episode for tomorrow morning. And then we're going to talk about it live again tomorrow. Regardless of whatever, even if there's a ruling tomorrow in Mecklenburg County, which is going to be the biggest story, we're still going to be covering this Board of Governors, North Carolina. Do they have to play a part in this if North Carolina pulls the trigger and file in a lawsuit against the ACC? I want to know your opinion in the chat room and with your phone calls. Phone lines open 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, the floor
Hey,
is
what's up,
yours. What are you thinking, sir?
What's up, Greg? How's it going? Thanks for having me on again.
It's a busy day. It's been a very busy last couple hours.
I would imagine so. I have a comment about the North Carolina thing. I think the only way that North Carolina is motivated to break up the ACC is NC State wins a championship. If NC State wins the chip, North Carolina is going to drop the lawsuit the next day because they see themselves as the big brother to NC State, and that one championship that NC State won back in '83, I know NC State fans still talk about it to this day, right? So I think that's the only way that North Carolina is kind of pushed to separate. Other than that, I think it's going to be kind of like the NCAA being forced to do things. I think North Carolina will be forced to leave the conference if Florida State wins or perceived wins their against the ACC in the lawsuit.
They might
Other
even,
than that,
or even if they perceive that Florida State has the upper hand at any part of that court case, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. If there's a perceived upper hand, I think then North Carolina could be like, hey, we didn't want to do it. We had to do it, right? Because inside of that state, what I think a lot of people outside of that state don't realize, politics is huge, and they think they're the center of the world, right? And so most of the board of governors are state graduates. Inside the state, state has a bigger kind of presence. So I don't think North Carolina is gonna leave before then. However, like you mentioned before, getting your ducks in a row and being prepared is kind of, I think, what they're doing. Because I think as this case goes along, to me it becomes obvious the risk assessment for the ACC is much higher, much higher.
What is your opinion on whether or not? Now it's very difficult, right? Because that thing that was passed isn't, it's pretty vague. But what is your opinion on whether or not the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, has to go to the Board of Governors, the 24 member group, and get their approval, to show a plan and get their approval before they file a lawsuit against the ACC?
I think that's what they're doing. I think it passed a few months ago where they kind of reorged the chart when it comes to power and realignment. I think that the people who are the most important people, they know what they have to do. Does that make sense? I think that.
Well, I think, I don't think. What we were told today, and when we have really good reason to believe this is absolutely 100% true, is that a certain body at North Carolina Chapel Hill is asking another body at North Carolina Chapel Hill if they have to go to the Board of Governors before if they shall decide to go and file a lawsuit. Do they have to go to the Board of Governors first? I think that's going to be asked the Board of Governors real soon if it hasn't already happened. Do you think the Board of Governors are going to say, yes, you have to come to us because this is going to be expensive, potentially expensive, and it has to do with potential conference affiliation? Or do you think the Board of Governors are going to say, no, it's too early yet. You go ahead and make your own decision on campus. How do you think that's going to go?
I think the Board of Governors is going to want everything to run through them.
Yeah, you might be right. But
I think the issue is it's a very fine line. the lawsuit could be not getting out of the conference. It could be what, we
Yes.
just want to see the contract, right?
Yes.
So I think they're not going to sue to get out of the conference, but everybody knows that's it's going to lead to that. But I think the BOG is going to be like, hey, we need that information because you fall under us. You're a school under our governance.
Yeah.
But and I'll say this, and then I'll get off your line. I do think it's quite funny. To me, I think it's quite funny. Like when you look at the conference setup, usually the most powerful school in that conference is the most successful. When you look at Ohio State, Michigan in the Big Ten, you look at Alabama, and Georgia in the SEC. But in the ACC, the oddity of the ACC is North Carolina is the most important school, but it is not the most successful school in terms of sports. So it's odd to see a school that has little to no athletic dominance, in football, have such a big role and importance in a conference, which I think if I'm Clemson or I'm Florida State, it wouldn't sit well with me. Like I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want smaller schools dictating, the future of my brand, my football program. And I think that's the oddity of the ACC is that they put a lot of power in these small non-football schools, which ultimately hurts the league.
This isn't quite the same, but there's in the Big Ten now. Wisconsin has had a lot of good, now long-term football success, and other sports as well. Good basketball. They're not winning national championships. They're not going to the playoffs in football, but with an expanded playoffs, they probably will once in a while. But they are more powerful in the politics of what goes on in the Big Ten than what happens on the athletic field. I would say to anybody listening that the Michigan-Wisconsin faction is the most powerful faction in the Big Ten when it comes to internal politics in the Big Ten. Now, Ohio State is very powerful, no question about it. But Wisconsin is more powerful than their success on the football field. I'm just telling you, Wisconsin pulls a lot of weight, and usually the University of Minnesota will follow Wisconsin's lead, and they will follow Michigan's lead, and then Illinois and Northwestern will, and it becomes a big faction. That faction, not so much Michigan, but the Wisconsin and all those schools wanted, were pushing for the Oregon and Washington expansion. So Wisconsin's an example that has more power within a conference than what their athletic programs would usually have given them. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I would think, maybe Alvarez's presence is the main reason for that because he's well respected from coast to coast. But to me, North Carolina being so important, yet not having success on the field, and I watch the ACC a lot, right? And another odd thing about the North Carolina thing is when they were top 10 in the country, they were I think 9-1, and they lost, right? And they kind of fell out of the race for last year for the ACC championship. The fans in North Carolina didn't seem too bothered by it. But when they lost in the Sweet 16 this year, they were crushed. So I think they just don't care about football. I don't care how you spin it. Their fans and their culture is not a football-oriented school. So for them to have all that power and not be a football school, it doesn't help the brand of the ACC, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And even if they go somewhere else to the SEC or the Big Ten, I think that their value is their location, their brand, their size, not their athletic performance on the field. And I don't know whether that will sit well with other conferences, knowing that you have this big brand that doesn't really care about football, but they have power. I don't know if that power translates to the Big Ten or to the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
I appreciate the phone call, sir.
Adios. Take care.
You got it, BJ. Beautiful call. Thanks once again. Great call. Gary Gold knows my neighbor a couple houses down here, Beach, Florida, Neptune Beach, Florida, told me her brother who coaches UNC lacrosse team has heard UNC's making a move soon because they don't want to be left behind. It's getting hot. Thank you for the super chat. Carrie Gold knows once again for your incredible generosity. Thank you so very much. And congratulations to DP, Gene Watson, John Bennett, David Kapsuta, and Amy S. You all are hereby Cloak and Dagger Knighted. You're all now membership. You all have memberships to the channel. And so you are hereby Cloak and Dagger Knighted. And that means you can go to the link provided in the description box. Hit the link. Go to our college football YouTube channel. Become a Cloak and Dagger Early Peak member for DP, Gene Watson, John Bennett, David Kupcha, and Amy S. That's what you just received. A gift membership. Go to our membership only episodes. Give it a watch. If you're not a member yet of Cloak and Dagger, hit the link in the description. Hit the join button and become a member. This is where we give you the early Cloak and Dagger on information that we're going to be carrying live later on. Now, of course, I could not drop this UNC tidbit early this morning because we didn't have the information. We've been working on the information for about 3 hours. We got it, and we don't have it all yet. We are working on it. And we gave it to you in the monologue. We're going to give it more to you in a Cloak and Dagger Early Peak tomorrow morning. And then whatever we find out more about this, what we think is a huge, massive story, we're going to be talking about it later tomorrow evening. So become a member, Cloak and Dagger Early Peak. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333 if you're a Sparty fan. If you are a Michigan State Spartans fan, let me know how you think. Are you a believer? You probably are a believer. I don't know why you would not be a believer in your new quarterback. It's going to be really intriguing to watch that play out. Let's see here.
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole is on the line. The floor is yours, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great today. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. Good.
I'm going to keep this on North Carolina here. And quick question for you. Is the threat of a lawsuit from North Carolina almost as good as a lawsuit? Because, however the question was asked,
Yeah.
doesn't sound like they were trying to keep it confidential.
Or
is that incorrect?
I think that's incorrect.
Okay.
I think that's incorrect. Again, I wasn't able to reach out to people that I haven't. Again, we are in the middle of the story. That's all I can say. So I don't know if I have I don't know if I have a good answer to that. I don't know if look what sometimes happens is I get some information. Either I know it's 100% good, or I'm not sure if it's 100% good. And then I run it up the flagpole, okay? With people in the industry. And sometimes people say, yeah, we know. Yeah. And I go, okay, all right. So I know other people are working on it. Sometimes they say, really? That might connect with something else I know. We all might have a little dot of information that somehow can be all connected at some point. Sometimes they say, nah, come on. Nope. And these are the reasons why. This story, I didn't have a chance. I could have just not had a live show and just kept working on it. But the reason I did, and the reason we dropped it tonight, was we have really good reasons to believe absolutely that this did occur. We might have some really good reasons to believe this occurred. So then I said to myself, well, then why don't I? Why wouldn't I not report this tonight then? I'm not, so I'm not this did not come from anybody else that I had to lay low on. This came from people that we've been talking to. These are the people that we've been talking to. This is why we got out ahead of the North Carolina situation with Mike Gusowich. All this stuff that's been going on in North Carolina, and now we get this, we're not going to hold on to it. So now your comment, JD, is a very good comment when you said, or your question was, is a threat of a lawsuit just as good as a lawsuit? Man, oh man, that the answer to that question, if it's coming from the UNC, the answer to that question might be yes. Might be yes. So
you and I had a... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, the leak, this might be part of the leak. You might be onto something. Or you're on something, JD. Either you're onto something or you're on something. I just don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know. About all I'm on is red meat and caffeine. Those are my vices.
Yeah.
But anyway. No, you and I were, when the Michigan controversy was going on, you and I had a conversation, and that was the one thing that was said was, the straw that breaks the camel's back for the ACC is North Carolina. And that's what I said a long time ago is that these other teams leave, that's like a business breaking up. North Carolina leaves the ACC, that's like your wife leaving you for another man, or another woman. And I'm not getting into all that, but you understand what I'm saying. It is something that will break. It's that is a relationship that breaks up, and it's different. So no, you don't have to worry about clarifying yourself to FSU fans, and I can't speak for Clemson fans because we understand the deal. I mean, we understand it's a different kind of relationship with North Carolina and the ACC than what it is with FSU or Clemson or whatever. I might even say Clemson's closer to the ACC than FSU is, and that's just because FSU has gotten the short end of the stick for well over a decade. And there's a lot of things, not just football. There's a lot of stuff, but it's just a lot of it's little stuff, but it just adds up over a period of time, And so, but anyway, okay, are you hearing any other chatter on anybody else? More than just rumor.
Well, we've received some stuff on Miami, but that was a few weeks ago. But nothing like this. This is
Nothing recent.
No. And again, March 15th, when we did that live show, and I had my hands to my ears, and I'm saying, loud chatter, Clemson chatter, blah, 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 blah. And then March 19th, they did the lawsuit. We're not at March 15th Clemson chatter when it comes to North Carolina. We're not there yet. But this is now, this is, the thing is we know this happened. So, I mean, why would, that means that North Carolina is at least in the process of going through the process of deciding on when do we file the lawsuit against the ACC. If they're asking now, do we have to go to the Board of Governors, or how much do we have to involve the Board of Governors in this?
Well, think about Clemson and FSU's case. The fact that North Carolina is considering filing a lawsuit.
Yeah.
If it was baseless, why are they considering filing a lawsuit?
Yeah.
And as time goes by, like we talked about yesterday at the end of our conversation, these schools, they don't have to win on every argument. Yeah, you're going to throw as many things against the wall as you can, hoping that discovery you're going to find something that's going to help substantiate your claim. But in this case, they don't have to win on everything. They just have to win on a small amount. And if you find enough, they've read these contracts. So, I don't remember for anybody, the people that have watched that show Suits. I ended up watching the whole series, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. It was at least entertaining. Mm-hmm. But man, I would have somebody with a photographic memory going up there and reading the whole contract and then just spitting it out verbatim what it is. And that's what I would do. Yeah. But I don't know. But it just, yes, sir. But there's too much smoke, and now others are talking about filing lawsuits. But I know, and I'm not getting our conversation yesterday. I'm not doing that because, again, I'm actually a little tired of debating that subject for the next, at least for another 24 hours. I may be ready to do tomorrow. Yeah. But if that was the aspect that Clemson focused on, and then FSU filed an amendment on that subject again, and now North Carolina is looking to potentially file a lawsuit, I have a feeling it'll be on the same subject. Goes back to what we said yesterday. When does the contract end? And if there is language, that might be their loophole. But we don't know when the contract technically ends. Are you bound to it till whenever how long are you bound to the contract? And they seem to have zeroed in onto that one particular aspect. So it's fascinating now, you bringing out the news that we've heard rumors, for the last week or two that they're getting ready to file or they're considering filing. And now that you're hearing the chatter about it, I appreciate you having the show and bringing all that out because, again, that's when I hear something, I'm always looking to see, is Mr. Greg, is he commenting on it? Because you're always just giving us those little hints, and I really appreciate that.
You got it.
So, all right. Have a great night.
All right. Appreciate it, man. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate. Can you hold on 1 second, or you can help me have this question answered? Tony, Tough Tony, puts in the chat. Great. Did you read that the Big Ten will play 9 of the games on Fox Fridays this fall? I did not see that. If somebody has the this article, whatever, send it to my DM at Flug Empire on X. I want to read it. 9 games on Fox. I did not see that. Did you see that, Immaculate?
Nope, but it wouldn't surprise me. I remember when they came out with their schedule, and we kind of had that graphic that they put out.
Yep.
And they had the little pennant on there that said Friday game, and they only had it next to, I think, the Iowa-Nebraska game. But if I remember right, the wording was Friday games or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they kind of gave it away a little bit there that they were planning to do more.
Yeah, I didn't hear the number 9. I did not hear the number 9. We knew
that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. You know, that Fox that was reported, I don't know, a couple of months ago that Fox was going to do Friday night games. I wonder, you know, I look at that Minnesota schedule sometimes, and I wonder if that October 12th game, Minnesota at UCLA, I wonder if that won't be moved to October 11th, that Friday night.
Possible.
It's first of all, Minnesota would say yes to a Friday night game. They never say no to any of that stuff. I don't know if they even can say no to any of that stuff. And then UCLA, they're a newcomer, right? So they're probably going to get tagged with a Friday night game. And anyways, Immaculate, go ahead. The floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
Well, the North Carolina stuff is interesting, but I mean, it's for me that's kind of just confirming, I think, what we already think. I mean, the 3 no votes. I think it's just a matter of time before North Carolina actually files, or the last call there with JV that they don't actually even have to. Like, just the threat of doing it is enough to maybe move this along. But the main reason why I wanted to call in, that's, you know, first going back a little ways back when we were heavy talking the pack, tried to nudge you a little bit to start talking ACC stuff, and it was too early. But I was trying to get in mind, like, that's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. I'm glad to see you talking about Dartmouth, because I know a lot of people aren't going to be as interested in it, but that's, in my opinion right now, the most important story of all of this, including North Carolina, including ACC, everything going on there, because that stuff's all pretty much known, and we know where that's going. That just needs some time to cook. But what's going on with the situation with Dartmouth, that could spread very quickly. They don't have the same out that Northwestern got back in 2014 for their NLRB case, where they had to go back. They got their appeal. Dartmouth doesn't have the same reason. They don't have a conference full of public schools that, you know, they have to compete against. So that one's really only going one way. And once that starts to play out, the Ivy League schools are going to have to make a choice, Greg. Whatever it is, they cannot stay where they are. They cannot continue doing what they're doing. You know, some folks, they might go down to Division III, right, where they don't have to give scholarships. They can, you know, get people, because a lot of D3 schools, they don't give scholarships, and people pay to go there and basically play football or do whatever. I mean, you're paying your full on everything. They might fall back and do that. Yeah. Or they might do something else. We don't know. But the fact of the matter is they have enough money and enough clout to do pretty much whatever the hell they want to do. It's just the only thing we know is they're going to have to do something different. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in what you think on that, because kind of surprised when some folks said in chat that you brought that up. That surprised me a little bit. So I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that overall, and where that could go.
It sounds like they're not going to get the reviews. So I think Dartmouth is going to be,
yep.
Think they're going to lose on that. I don't know what Dartmouth is going to do. They might look. It would be easy for me to say Dartmouth is just going to go to club teams for all their sports because this. Listen to what they've been saying. Look at their response to this. Look at Northwestern's response to it was similar to Dartmouth, and Northwestern they're gonna do what the Big Ten schools do. They're gonna be in some sort of revenue sharing revenue arrangement with their student athletes somehow, some way. So maybe Dartmouth does that as maybe eventually they say, okay, we lost this. We don't think it's right, but we don't want to give up this level of college competition, so we'll do the same. But there does seem to be a cultural academic wall that will probably keep Dartmouth and Harvard and Cornell from really opening up the spigots and having them take advantage of the wealth and resources that they have at their disposal when it comes to athletics. Probably right now, probably ain't going to happen. In other words, I don't think there's going to be any real big change with the Ivy League schools, even if they go forth and have their student athletes be represented by a union and they do all this stuff. But we'll see. I really don't know, man. I really don't know.
Yeah, because that one is not going to stick with just Dartmouth. That's going to definitely easily go right through the Ivies.
Yep.
And I don't know if you remember or not, we've talked about it, but there's a currently going on case at Brown University where they're being sued for discrimination on their financial aid to student athletes because they don't hand it out equally. And on that case, I think 4 other Ivy League schools sent defense teams to go help them. So they all see that once again as something that could affect all of them. There's a lot going at them. They've got the price fixing class action lawsuit on them where some of them have now settled and the rest of them have to take part of it. They're under a lot of fire. And I agree with you. I don't think that there's any large impetus right now for them to do something kind of unheard of and that no one would think of actually moving upwards. But that type of a situation, for them to have that happen, they would need to have a lot of their big donors and people push that and support that. And in my opinion, one of the best, most likely ways that could happen, if it was to happen, is because of high emotions, of anger, of, we saw Northwestern get out of this. All of a sudden, if they can't get out of it, we might still see USC get out of it. That USC case going on out west is exactly the same as the Northwestern case. And they've even saw fit to move themselves to the same conference that got Northwestern out of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So we might see both Northwestern and USC actually get out of those cases, and the Ivy League's not. What I'm saying is, you look at that situation, you're the Ivies, and you say, well, maybe we have to do something similar to that in order to survive this, in order to not have this tear us apart. I mean, does that make any sense at all, or is that just way too far out there?
No, I get it. I get it. I get it.
There's a lot to go.
Yeah. Yep. And when it spreads to the next Ivy school, I would assume that the next Ivy school, I could be wrong, but I would assume the next Ivy school will have the same reaction that Dartmouth did, right, against the NLRB decision, but against student athletes unionizing, having a vote. I'm assuming the next Ivy League school is going to have the same sort of reaction that Dartmouth did.
Yeah, according to some of the I don't remember which one, but I think it was in multiple, but some of the articles that have been going on about that, the union that's involved with that has already reached out to students at the other Ivy League schools and supposedly to other private schools. I don't know which ones. But the moment this case is done, if that might be here very soon when they just turn down Dartmouth's appeal, if the moment that happens, every single one of those schools is now facing the same thing immediately. Because they can each happen independently, because those are each happening from students at those schools, and the union is right there with them all at the exact same time. So the amount of cases that could hit the books in that very moment when the NLRB turns down Dartmouth, I don't even know how to put a number to it right now. I mean, we'd have to know who all of those unions have started to reach out to, because that's not just students coming up with it on their own. Now the union is basically selling the idea to the students, which means that's going to move quick, Greg. That's like say tomorrow the NLRB comes back and turns down that appeal.
Yeah,
I would say the next day you're going to hear about filings, like the very next day.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's one of those stories where like you're on top of it, and that's awesome. And I don't know who else really even is.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to sound the warning, like when this thing hits, it's going to be like a tidal wave.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I said when I was covering it. I said,
yeah,
there's a reason why I'm covering this today, because I want to be able to say I covered it, and and I think they're going to lose their review, and Dartmouth is, and
yeah, I don't see how they win it. I don't. The one thing that got Northwestern out, they don't have. So
yeah.
We'll see, bro. That's mostly what I want to talk about. I'm sure there's some other people who are looking to get on here, and the UNC is the boy to everyone. But I just wanted to kind of congratulate you for keeping that one on the fire, because I think that one's.
Appreciate it,
man.
Have a good
talking
one.
to you.
Anthony Carlson's in the house. Anthony, I need you to make a comment, or I need you to make a phone call. 763-260-1333. The title of our show was UNC Chapel. UNC, the chatter is growing louder by the day, period. And Aiden Chiles' Mania is running wild in East Lansing. Aiden Chiles is getting a lot of flowers being thrown at him in East Lansing. The way he interviews with the press, the way he's playing in spring ball. Jonathan Smith, his head coach. Aiden Chiles was with him 1 year, Oregon State. Jonathan Smith goes to Michigan State, East Lansing. Aiden Chiles follows him. They've got a connection. Looks like they've got a real close connection. It's going to be very intriguing. There's no question Aiden Chiles is the man. I'm watching this at work. Okay. We can type something in the chat. But look, this is a national college football YouTube channel. So if there's something going on in East Lansing, if there is some mania that's running wild, and there is, we're going to report on it. We're going to report on it. Sparty fans are, pretty excited. Pretty excited about their quarterback, Aiden Chiles. Okay, the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. The question that I have for you on the main topic of this show. We've been talking about a lot of things, like we always do. But the main topic of the show, do you believe Do you believe that North Carolina, Lee Roberts, the chancellor, the board of trustees, if they make a decision, John Pryor, the chairman of the board of trustees at North Carolina, who's basically said out in public, we cannot go on like this. We need to compete at the highest level. We want to have meaningful conversation with other conferences, basically mimicking the argument of Clemson and Florida State, but particularly Clemson. Does North Carolina, Chapel Hill, have the ability to pull the trigger, to file the lawsuit in whatever county they exist in North Carolina versus the ACC without the approval of the Board of Governors in this new process?
Call from
Jamie Thornton.
Mrs. Arkansas Razorback Jamie Thornton is in the house. The floor is yours. How you doing?
Woo pig suey, Greg. How are you today?
There you go. You're doing okay then, if you can say that.
That's right. You know, I don't expect you to learn the Arkansas fight song, which, by the way, is one of the best fight songs out there. I'm not being biased or anything.
All right.
But I would expect you to.
If you want me to sing the Arkansas fight song, if you want me to sing it off key, like I always do eventually, we're going to have to wait for the season. We're going to have to wait for Arkansas to win a game as an underdog and with a donation attached, like a $1.99 donation. Okay?
Greg, when you just said win a game as an underdog, that means it'll never happen. You set yourself up in a good spot there.
But that's the rules of PATC. Donation during the week of the game of your team, and they have to be the underdog's point spread. And if they win, and then I'll sing your fight song the next week.
Well, that's fair. And what I was going to tell you is even if you don't do the fight song, I said I was going to say at least do the hog call. So, you know, I mean, that's a little easier.
I don't know if my Minnesota voice can do that hog call.
Have you seen the hog call? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, not really.
I didn't think you did. But, yeah, the whole North Carolina, and I don't know if this is really interesting because it's some questions I had. I don't know if you want me to send you the guy's information, but I did reach out to someone on the internet that, or on X, and he has ties with the North Carolina Board of Governors. And what's interesting about this whole thing to me is he said that how they feel, and of course they're going to look out for all these schools, like you said, there's 16 overall, but there's 2 that can play, right? Yeah. And he said how they feel. If they feel really, really good about the place that NC State is in as far as a future home. That's pretty much what he would get into, which I find that interesting about what kind of different scenarios happen here if UNC does indeed have to go to the Board of Governors to file a lawsuit. Because there are several things on that. One I did look up and I sent to you. I think one of them I sent the wrong article to you, and I'm sorry about that. But the thing I was posting in the chat was essentially that a BOG meeting can be held in private. So it's something that they can either that the board president himself can actually schedule a date for, or North Carolina school can actually go to him and it can be held in private. So, yeah, we may not know as far as that goes. What's interesting to me is if NC State and the board, if they really feel that way, what are the chances, what's going on, with NC State? I mean, do they feel like, could we see a dual lawsuit when this happens? That's a whole nother intriguing question because we haven't heard much out of NC State at all.
Yeah, I would consider that an extreme long shot that North Carolina State would do that. First of all, I don't think they would need to do that, right?
Right.
If North Carolina is going in on it. And, North Carolina, North Carolina State probably approved the lawsuit against Florida State. We don't know that for sure.
Right.
They may not have. They might have been one of the 5 schools that did not vote for approval on the amended complaint on January 17th. The vote took place supposedly. So I probably shouldn't say that either way, but I would say that it's a long shot that there'd be a dual lawsuit. I think North Carolina would suffice. I think North Carolina coming out third out of the block would change. It would be a psychological blow to the ACC. It'd be something to watch, I tell you that.
Yeah, and like you said, you talked about the politics and everything going on at North Carolina. It's very, very interesting to see the fact that actually got brought up. Obviously they haven't put in the kind of work that Clemson and FSU has, but they've made it very clear between the language and their voting from everything, from, of course, the new additions to, that they know, and I think that was a really good post by Carey earlier about, the coach there. They've got a lot, they have got a lot of athletic programs at North Carolina. And I'm sure a lot of people realize that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sports there that they have to pay for. And in this day in NIL, and they have way too much to lose to sit around. And, the old days of, we are essentially the ACC. I mean, pretty much, Tobacco Road and Virginia, those days are gone. So, obviously a lot of things going on behind the scenes in private there, but yeah, I mean, they are definitely getting ready to make their move for sure. So, I mean, it's a great question. It's going to be interesting to see how this works because, I mean, all this is obviously new, not only to them looking for a new home, but all this that has happened. And North Carolina State, very smart in the North Carolina Board of Governors and what they've done there. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people are going to point to other schools that say, that people have always said they're tied to the hip, but there's actually nothing to keep them. This is going to be one of those weird cases where they're going to have to go through a guy that is the chairman there of the North Carolina Board of Governors is a huge NC State guy.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to watch. But yeah, I had wondered that same question before this was even,
Oh, really? I never even thought
at
about
North
it.
Carolina.
I never even.
Yeah.
It never entered my.
Yeah.
I never had that question asked on my show, and suddenly this early afternoon, boom, and I was like, whoa, and
yeah.
I
talked to a few people. I think Immaculate was one of them too, where it was just like, well, what happens here? Once all that went through, and it comes time to file a lawsuit. What happens here as far as can they just go do that themselves? Because based on the language of how everything looks on there, it's almost like it all has to go through. It's almost like the NC Board of Governors has complete control of any kind of conference realignment for those schools. So
the question is filing a lawsuit. If it's just about saying, hey, we want, it's such a murky situation. It doesn't necessarily have to be about conference affiliation, but when you're suing your own ACC, you know, I can see why the Board of Governors would have to rule on that. I don't know.
Yeah. And if you look at the language in that, Greg, and that's some of the things I was posting on there too, just to let people know in case they missed the chat, if essentially, you're going to the Board of Governors with a financial plan on what's going on, right? And then if the president of the board, if that board doesn't approve the plan, they send it back and you can file a new plan. And so you can keep doing that over and over and over again. But I mean, until they approve it, they're just, in other words, if they don't like what you send them, they're just going to reject it, send it to you, and you have to come back with a whole nother one. And this could go on for, like these ACC lawsuits drag out for God knows how long. I mean, that's a whole nother case there where it seems like the ACC is trying to stall out as much as they can. So, we'll just have to wait and see. But it is very fascinating, and it's something that that I had wondered from day one of that, because we just knew it was coming. So.
Yeah. All right.
But thanks, Craig.
Thank you,
I appreciate
Jamie.
it. Mm-hmm. You guys have a great day.
You too. Appreciate the call. Great call. Immaculate. It costs $5 million now for a school to move up from FCS to FBS. Most FCS schools probably can't afford that. Most or all of the Ivy could, though.
Call from
ABO Prep.
So, can you hold on for one moment, please?
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. The one FCS school that PATC is keeping an eye on, but man, oh man, we've been keeping an eye on this school for a long time, and that is Missouri State. So, Missouri State, they have been on the verge of pulling the trigger to get to Conference USA for the last at least 3 years, if not 4. Their president has talked about an open, their former president, Missouri State, who plays North Dakota State, South Dakota. They've been looking at moving up, even when they changed that even when they changed the payment to $5 million. But I haven't talked about it in my early peak episodes yet. I haven't really talked about it live show. But PATC is keeping an eye on Missouri State, Conference USA. Keep an eye on that one. So, the floor is yours. What's going on, sir? How you doing?
I'm well, thanks. I hope this finds you well also. Greg, I've been out of touch for a few days, and I was shocked yesterday to see some reports that listed that ESPN has notified the ACC that they're not going to renew the contract, as well as Florida State and Clemson giving notice that they were leaving the ACC, and I was shocked. I assume those were April Fool's jokes, or what have you heard along those lines? Why and how are people reporting that?
Well, I did an early peak episode on that Cloak and Dagger. I did and I talked about it on the live show, I think yesterday. And I got to be honest, I haven't heard. I've asked the question. I did some poking and prodding, and I cannot. Everyone's telling me that that's not the case. It's that there's no standing offer for Florida State. ESPN has not told some of the ACC schools that they're leaving in 2027. And what was the other one? Oh, and that Clemson and Florida State are not.
Are given notice, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any information on any of that, and we were told nobody does. Don't really know where that generated from, but because I was inundated with all those speculation or reports, whatever you want to call them. We don't believe any of that is happening. Now, if it does, we'll take the big L on here, but I'm definitely not reporting it. And I've kind of squashed it, but I'm open to people telling me that I'm wrong in the chat room or with the phone call. I got no problem with that at all.
Well, you've been right on. I was able to. I love the fact that I can go back and listen to some of your old shows, and I picked you up in the winter of 2022, and we spoke then, and we both agreed on what was going to happen at that time to the Pac-12 or Pac-10, Pac-12, I guess it was at the time, and we nailed that, and we talked about the possibility of the teams coming over to the Big 12, and then when we started talking about my ideas that the ACC was going to fold, you were adamant in saying that there was no way that they were going to get around the grant of rights because the grant of rights was just so solid and so forth, and we kind of left it at that. I think it's become apparent to me that all of this is pretty much being driven by ESPN. this whole restructuring thing is turning out the way that ESPN wants it. And ESPN is just looking for a reason to say we're not going to renew the rights. They need something to justify their reasoning for not renewing it, so as to be sure that they can't be held liable for any type of collusion or anything. So they're waiting for a decision. Any win, like one of your earlier callers said, just any win in the legal, on the legal side, and they will then use that. But it has to be before the 30th of June, because that's when the new teams come in, and they're going to lose their ability to resolve or dissolve the league after that. Do you see that this is kind of a major plan by the people at ESPN, or is it purely organic?
I don't mean to be a Scrooge on everything, but I just think I don't think there's really any major coordinated plan of any sort. I think they're battling out in the courts, right? We're going to see what the court rulings are. We're going to see. I think ESPN would rather just leave everything alone, just keep going as it is. They might not be able to do that, but I think they, if things go pear-shaped for Florida State and then Clemson and ACC continues on, I think ESPN will be very, very happy. So I don't see any action. I don't see any major action until let's just first see where the Mecklenburg court ruling comes out this week, hopefully. See what happens there. Leon County. Now, if things go a little pear-shaped for the ACC, if we all perceive that, if North Carolina perceives that, then we're going to be keeping an eye on North Carolina if they're going to file a lawsuit. But ESPN's, all this theory about ESPN doing this, that, or the other thing, I think they expressed themselves pretty well in the Leon County court when they basically leveled felony charges at the Florida State lawyers. I think ESPN's going to continue to do as they're doing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but you mentioned something that you didn't see a lot of coordination. Well, can you agree that there is coordination in these lawsuits? That it's just not by chance that you look at the things that are being brought up in the suit by Florida State versus what they're being brought up by Clemson.
Yeah,
they're going to.
No,
I mean,
no, you're correct. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
And that leads me to believe that North Carolina is sitting back, waiting to see some results to decide on what points they're going to sue for, and that they just need one win. And so that, I'm all right. Greg, I appreciate your thoughts. Thanks a lot. Let me just say one quick thing about Dartmouth. You really enjoy listening to Immaculate's opinion on these things. But how are the Ivy League players, if they become unionized, how are they going to get around minimum wage and Title IX? They're going to have to at least charge minimum wage, $10, $15 an hour for a semester. 40 hours a week is going to be about $1 million, $1.5 million per football team. And then they're going to have to pay all of the athletes exactly the same amount, because Title IX is going to require that. I mean, you're talking about, how are they going to get around not destroying all of the athletics by making them hourly employees? They have to, especially if the union's involved, they're gonna want their union wages to be a large, a percentage of the hourly rate. How's that going to work?
I don't know, especially around the Title IX. I do not know.
I mean, I don't see it. It would have to be the end of it, or they would have to somehow, by going down to saying that they're Division III, would that relieve them of somehow the responsibility of being employees?
What was that question?
You'd mentioned that they might drop down to the Division III level.
Well, I did. Immaculate said that. I think they might just go down to club level. Where
would that still require them to
the student athletes
them of that?
The student athletes would have to pay for their own uniforms and everything, their own shoes. Club level means if you want to participate, you provide your own whatever.
But I mean, if wouldn't they still have to get paid for that?
No, because it's voluntary. No, it's club level. We're not providing you. You have to pay probably even to get into the gym to play basketball. It'd be like YMCA club level.
Yeah.
I played the fat guy from Minnesota. I played basketball, interim basketball at St. Cloud State University. I was a lot skinnier. I was a better athlete. But I played basketball at St. Cloud State University. I'm going to tell you something. Nobody was going to pay me money for my 15-foot clank shots. And my no running back on defense, my cherry picking on offense. No one was going to pay. So it's.
I'm drawing a mental picture here, Greg. I'm an old guy too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Great talking to you. My best to your lovely bride and your great mom. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Connecticut fan, the alumni at the Ivy League schools sometimes don't eat. Absolutely, the sports clubs. Carrie Gold Nose with another gifted membership. Holy smokes. Thank you so much for your generosity. Once again, Carrie Gold Nose, for helping us keep the lights on here. I do appreciate you, sir. I do appreciate it. Once again, you are knighted, cloak and dagger. Wow. And Michael Uten, you are hereby cloak and dagger. You are knighted. Michael Uten, you are now a member of this College Football Rebel Outpost football channel. So go to our channel. Go to the members only episodes. Go watch it. We dropped one. I think we dropped one today. Or no, yesterday. We dropped one yesterday. Go to episode 30 of yesterday. I think the chancellor fired wasn't due to wanting to go to the Big Ten. Hans is tired of professors hijacking UNC's Chapel Hill and not teaching fundamentals. Yeah, North Carolina is not aligned. There has been a somewhat of a fundamental change at North Carolina. For better or for worse. Some people say for better. Some people say for worse. But yeah. And right now it leans SEC. It's been leaning that way for quite a while now. When we first brought it to everybody's attention, probably about a year ago. Cornell is something that I'm going to keep an eye on. Now, Minnesota is on the verge. The University of Minnesota men's hockey team is on the verge of getting a big-time hockey player that's in the transfer portal. I'm gonna say the word decent. A decent percentage of the overall NIL money at University of Minnesota is going towards their hockey programs, which is probably the only Power 5 program that is that way. Cornell, if their hockey program, if they get unionized, salary, Cornell's hockey is a player in all this, is a player in men's hockey. I just wonder what they're going to do once this spreads to their men's hockey program. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. Justin Lucas. The UNC Board of Trustees or any university board cannot sue in their name without approval from the president and the Board of Governors. A settlement must be approved by the Board of Governors if it exceeds a certain amount. Ooh, Justin Lucas. Now, the Board of Trustees at Florida State, they're the ones that sued the ACC. Justin Lucas, give me a call if you got a chance. If you have an opportunity, 763-260-1333. Give me a call, Justin, if you are available. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go back and say it once again. We were told today that the question was asked, one body of the University of Chapel Hill to another body, legal counsel, that the question was, do we have to go to the Board of Governors before we pull the trigger? If we decide to pull the trigger. Justin Lucas' answer is yes, they do. Two king slots, never listen to anyone.
Call from
Justin, thanks for calling, sir. I do appreciate it. And I do appreciate all the help you've given me and the PATC community over the last few months. I appreciate it so very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
So we were told today. Now you're kind of saying this is obvious. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be putting words in your mouth, but you're saying that the university board cannot sue without the approval of the president and the Board of Governors. We know today that there was a certain, more than one person, a certain body from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that asked another body, some legal counsel people, that do we have to pull the trigger? I mean, if we decide to pull the trigger, do we have to go to the Board of Governors with our plan? Do we have to get approval? You're believing that's the answer to that question is yes?
Well, if you go to the UNC policy manual on northcarolina.edu, there's a whole bunch of there's a rule book, of course, and there's a whole section on initiating and settling potential and pending litigation. And part 4A of this, and there's a whole bunch, and I'm not going to read it all, but it says that by virtue of General Statutes 116-3, the capacity and authority to initiate litigation as well as to settle potential and pending litigation in the name of the university and on behalf of the constituent and affiliated institutions lies exclusively with the Board of Governors. A constituent and affiliated institution has no independent capacity or authority to initiate litigation or to settle potential litigation or pending litigation in its own name or in the name of the University of North Carolina. There's some further reading, but they're huge paragraphs, and I'm not going to read them all. But a quick glance of it makes it seem like if the amount is greater than like $75,000, you need approval for that kind of settlement. So I'll read up more on it and
Yeah.
figure and see.
But
from what I read here, I don't think it's much of a question of whether the Board of Governors has ultimate authority over that.
now, the way you're like what you just read, to initiate litigation, that's definitely what this would be, right? I'm
Correct.
wondering
Correct.
why the question's being asked then.
That's a good question. I mean, lawyers parse over terms all the time, I guess.
Yeah.
That is a really good question, and I'm not quite sure for it. There is a section that says there's a whole bunch of committees that a committee on university governance may authorize the initiation of litigation in the name of the University of North Carolina. And to this, I don't want to get people confused. The University of North Carolina, and I'm using it, is talking about all 16.
Mm-hmm.
Not just University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Whenever we say UNC, we always use UNC as in the one in Chapel Hill. In these documents, UNC is the University of North Carolina, which means all 16 of the universities. So you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's really interesting why the question's being asked, and I'm not quite sure why, but they're getting paid to ask the question, so I'm sure there is a reason why.
Yeah. Huh.
I'll send you this policy on legal affairs, initiating and settling potential and pending litigation policy manual in your DMs.
Beautiful. Wow. Okay. Thank you, Justin. I do appreciate it. Do I have another question for you?
I've been checking the docket all week so far, and there's still no ruling yet.
There's really nothing going on in Pickens County and Leon County and Mecklenburg County.
Right. We probably won't hear much until we get a ruling from the judge in Mecklenburg County. What were we going to ask?
Well, I was going to ask, sorry to interrupt. I was going to ask, is it going to be something like, let's say tomorrow's Wednesday, April 3rd. Is it going to be an announcement that there's a ruling and then they're going to give you the date and the time, or could the ruling just pop up in the docket?
It would just pop up in the docket. You really just have to check. And keep checking. It's not like the Supreme Court where you get a notice that there will be rulings or an order beforehand. No, you have to you just have to keep on checking and checking.
So tomorrow could be kind of, I might be hitting that refresh button continuously.
It could be tomorrow, it could be Thursday, it could be Friday, or it could be Monday.
Yes.
So those are the 4 days.
Yes.
Part of me thinks that it would be released on a Friday, actually, but
really,
no one knows. Yes, I would think of Friday. That's usually I would think of Friday, but it really could be any day of the week, any day of those 4.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Now, if you get, if you hit that refresh button, Justin, and you see it, you know where to send it, right? And you know who to explain it to.
Right, absolutely.
I'm going to need you to explain it. I'm not going to be able to understand a word of it. You know that better than anybody. So,
right.
I need you to talk to me like I was 5 years old.
Just scroll to the end where it says conclusion, and you'll pretty much know if it's not dismissed, that's a win for the ACC. If it's dismissed or stayed, that's a loss for the ACC.
Dismissed or stayed. Got
it. And this is where it's going to get a little frustrating is if it's not dismissed or stayed, Florida State could appeal that ruling to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. They could decide not to appeal it, and then we'd go into a case management conference where they would set up the rules for discovery, maybe set a trial date, even though this probably doesn't get to that point. It probably ends in a settlement. And discovery can take, does not take a week. It could take a little bit of time. And I don't think that that's very conducive to Twitter. I think they want results quickly, and I don't think that we're going to see results within 3 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Probably
right.
much longer. But
All right. Well,
yeah,
go ahead.
The question made me want to go look and see, and maybe there's a loophole that I haven't found yet that they're trying to ask a question about, but from what I've read and what I saw there, it seems pretty black and white to me.
Yeah, my question was, like, when I was into this phone call back and forth thing, I asked the question, are they asking if they need to, or are they asking, is North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that, are they asking, what do we need to do? And the answer back was both. So maybe it's more of a, what do we need to do? Like, what is this? Like, how do we apply? How do we signify to you? If we go into a closed door set, whatever. But the answer was both. So,
right.
I don't know.
It sounds, I mean, this is just complete speculation on my part, but it sounds like we're not to an imminent filing of a lawsuit. It seems like we're trying to figure out what you have to do to get to that point.
Yes, yeah.
And another part that I was going to ask, was wondering was, I mean, I've always been a skeptic. I don't think that UNC can sue the ACC without NC State joining in, because if you sue, you're directly targeting and putting risk on NC State, obviously.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens. But I don't think anything's going to happen this week, because the Board of Governors would definitely be furious if UNC took the spotlight away from NC State this week.
Yeah. Women's and men's basketball. Yes, absolutely. You are correct.
Right.
All right, Justin. You are incredible. You're incredibly intelligent, and you also have this great skill set of explaining things to even an idiot like me can understand. So you have a great talent. I appreciate you, sir. I might be bugging you tomorrow. If something pops, I'm definitely going to be bugging you tomorrow. Do you understand that?
I'll probably be the first to let you know if there's a rule.
Okay.
I'll be bugging you first.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Bye-bye.
Beautiful. Justin Lucas, man. You guys have no idea how much Justin Lucas has helped me out. Just now, Jamie, I think you were I think you were correct when you talked about a duo lawsuit there. Justin thinks that North Carolina State would have to be involved. I think that's what Justin Lucas said at the end of the call, and I think Jamie, you might have been onto something when I thought you were on something. So I apologize to Jamie for that. Or it might have been somebody else. I don't remember. Man, I was making a comment here about something. There was something in here. But now I missed it. Anyways, I think we're going to close up the live show for tonight. We've been on the air for, I think, a little bit more than 2 hours. I want to thank everybody for their incredible donations, supporting the show, helping us keep the lights on, the great chats, the great comments in the chat room, and of course the great phone calls from everybody. This show really connects each other on the phone calls. It's unbelievable. I still don't understand college football YouTube channels that don't have call-ins. I don't quite understand it. I learned so much. Everybody learns so much from these phone calls. The PATC community loves college football. Is so intelligent. So anyways, that's just my take on it. I want to thank everybody for their donations, for the generosity, for the comments in the chat, and for the wonderful phone calls. So, like what Justin Lucas said, it could happen tomorrow. We could get the ruling. It's just going to pop up on the docket. And if it pops up on the docket, I got to come in the studio and I got to get this live show cranked up. So, more important than ever, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to our channel. Hit the subscribe button. Get yourself notified. Have your notifications open. We could come on live at any time tomorrow. Not just about the ruling, about anything in college football. So make sure you are notified of our show. You get your notifications and smash the like button if you liked our content tonight. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Look, 4 days. It's going to happen in the next 4 working days. Tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Monday. Epic ruling coming out of Mecklenburg County. So buckle up, brace for impact, stay close to PATC. Until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you